Hello everyone, this is Bobby Hargas with another impromptu video. This time I am sitting down and not standing up, and I would like to do this just to answer one question that was asked that I think is important to touch on, having to do with why is it that I think it is easier, more feasible to do eco-village development projects in the global south as opposed to places like Western Europe or the United States. And it really boils down to two factors, one of them being a political factor, the other one being a social factor. Now, again, I don't like to discuss politics all that much because I personally think it's a lost cause, but I think this is important to touch on just to answer the question. So, if you want to affect policy in places like the United States, whatever it is you're trying to do cannot fly in the face of the corporatocracy, right? The real policymakers. So, if you ever want to do something as grandiose or even something small that scales up to being something that might affect the bottom line of the corporatocracy, it would simply not work, or at least it won't work in the long run. And there is a certain danger in that. Whereas if you're in the global south and you want to do this, developing countries are much easier to work with politically, especially when it comes to local politics. That at least that's been my personal experience in the Philippines in trying to establish an eco-village here, trying to get permissions to do it. It's much easier to reach out to people, to talk to them, much easier to get these ideas across to both individuals and policymakers. The other thing has to do with culture. In the United States, and I'm just focusing on the United States here because that's where I grew up. In the United States, there is a highly, highly competitive culture of individualism. This culture of individualism is one that causes people to see it as a virtue to work 16 hours a day nonstop in order to be able to have money to, live and then come back home and, watch Netflix and then rinse and repeat again forever until you die. And this is considered a virtue, right? Now, in my view, that's a bit of a sickness, but I understand where it comes from. I understand why people suffer from it, so I can't blame anybody for thinking this way. Whereas in the global south, there is a more collaborative culture. People really don't care too much about amassing personal wealth as much as the application of such wealth to the betterment of their lives, which makes it much easier to get people adapted to a resource-based system once one is established. And in a nutshell, this is why I personally believe it's much easier to do what we're trying to achieve here in places like the South Pacific, Africa, South America than it is in the United States. Not to say that's not going to happen in the United States. The reason for that is because the current socio-political system, the socio-economic system as a whole, the system of money, is really coming to an end. And I think people are starting to see this now more than ever. The problem is, as it is sort of climaxing and reaching the tipping point, there is going to be a severe and drastic reduction in standard of living. And, as that happens, people are going to seek alternative solutions. And this is going to force people to reach out for these alternative solutions and apply them in places in the global north. How this is going to transpire, I do not know. You need to be able to see the future to be able to see how, how resource-based economics is going to take place in places like the United States, what the transition looks like in the global north. Nobody really knows. But one thing is a certainty, and that is the standard way of doing business, the current socio-political, socio-economic system is nearing the end. And this is the first time in history where we see an empire collapsing that also possesses nuclear weapons. So there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of unknowns about what's going to happen next. But all of that aside, I think we should really just continue working, continue focusing on coming together and, creating applicable ways by which we can facilitate a transition to whatever happens next, whatever comes next, whatever is going to be the replacement for the standard economic model. So that's it. That's it for my little impromptu video, and thank you for watching, and I'll see you again next time.